Yeah, you hear that, Texans? Know your goddamn place, okay? You're fucking the 10th largest economy. California's the 5th largest economy, okay? Suck it. This is a great video. I highly recommend it. Okay.
We need to talk. We've grown apart these last few years. It's not you, it's Mississippi. It's Mississippi. Pew Research reports that over
Good to see at least a handful of us left is making bank. Keep with the great work. Someone has to beat MAGA because corporate, damn sure or not. What?
the past 7 years, Americans have increasingly felt that their political opposites are stupider, more dishonest, more immoral, and lazier. And the simple fact is,
does it have bucket seats? How can you not feed? It does have bucket seats. I can't fit in a bucket seat.
They're right, regardless of what side they're on.
I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top.
And in light of this increasing political acrimony among Americans, some have begun to think it was good while it lasted, but it's time to call it quits on this whole union thing. For example, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has declared a crisis at the border and says that Texas has a right to self-defense and is going to take over immigration duties from the US government and stop the US government from interfering. And many politicians agree, like Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who triggered a firestorm of criticism by repeatedly demanding a national divorce in which Red America and Blue America go their separate ways. And we should listen to Congressperson Greene because she knows from experience what it means when someone decides they can't stand you anymore and unceremoniously leaves you. But while Greene was pilloried on all sides for her call for splitting up the union, a March 2023 poll suggests that around 1/5 of the population, or 66 million Americans, if you can extrapolate from that, are amenable to a national divorce. Looks like the 250-year itch is real. And even soon-to-be also-ran Nikki Haley is on tape claiming the Constitution allows states to secede.
Do you believe that the states of the United States have the right to secede from the Union?
I think that they do. I mean, the Constitution says that.
And admittedly, these numbers are alarming, though it's unclear to what extent it reflects a sincere desire to break up the union as opposed to a way to register their displeasure that the person you didn't vote for became president. But in 2009, Governor of Texas and King of Failing Upwards, Rick Perry, jokingly suggested his state would consider secession after the election of Barack Obama. But this isn't just a red state thing. In 2017, a poll found that 32% of California voters supported seceding from the US following the election of Donald Trump, up from 20% in 2014. And again, after Joe Biden was elected, Texas is once again partying like it's 1861 by refusing to accept election results and threatening secession. Regardless, what was once unthinkable, the
Wouldn't Texas leaving the U.S. benefit everyone? Not really. No. I mean, it's just like, no, there's no secession, okay? It's not happening. I feel like it would. Not only is Texas oil rich, but it's beyond that. It's like there's a lot of people in Texas that you know, have family members all around the country. Texas is a massive state. It wouldn't be good for the people of Texas. It would not be good for the rest of the American economy. It's ridiculous.
Breakup of the United States has become a real issue we can no longer treat as a mere hypothetical.
That does it. South America, take it away.
So today, Legal Eaglets, let's talk about what would happen if states opted to formally leave the union and whether that's legally possible. Now, typically, it's a mistake to treat cranks with any kind of serious inquiry. After all, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not exactly what one would call a constitutional scholar, but her proposal is not without precedent. After all, the United States of America was born out of secession. And ever since the colonists declared themselves an independent nation, threats to leave the Union have long been made by various constituents of the US, but rarely acted on. And in fact, the first serious threat of secession came not from the Deep South, but from New England. In 1814, New England delegates attended the Hartford Convention to protest President James Madison's mercantile policies and the War of 1812, with more extreme delegates making an unsuccessful push to leave the Union. And then, and stop me if you've heard this one already, after the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, 11 southern US states broke off
that goddamn libtard, dude,
from the Republic to form the Confederate States of America, triggering a bloody 4-year civil war. And of course, despite modern attempts by some to claim the Confederacy was fighting for states' rights, not slavery, we know that that's pretty much false. How do we know? Well, for one, the majority of the states explicitly wrote in their declaration.
Yeah, it's so funny that reactionary whitewashing of history is always the same. It's like Israel is such a perfect prescient demonstration of that same principle, because Israel will be like, oh, dude, we're the indigenous population, actually. And it's like, well, okay, But in its founding, like the founders openly were like, we're doing colonialism. We are a colonial power. The people that are here, the indigenous population, do not like that we are a colonial power. It is going to cause problems. We must kill them. Okay, we got to figure out a way to expel them, either by force or just in general. We got to do that. So why are you lying about it now? They just you said it openly, right? And it's the same principle behind like Confederates trying to whitewash the Civil War and be like, actually, it was about states' rights. States' rights for what? For what? What did the states want to do differently? What do they want to do differently? They wrote it down. It's just like they wrote it. It's there. It's so stupid.
Declarations of secession that the reason they seceded was to preserve slavery and prevent political equality between whites and blacks. But you know, sometimes people are only textualists when it's convenient. But even cities have gotten on the secession bandwagon, or in this case, perhaps the secession yacht. Martha's Vineyard, along with Nantucket, actually voted to secede from Massachusetts. Yes, in 1977, the Martha's Vineyard selectmen voted 10-2 for secession to protest a redistricting plan that would reduce their representation in the state legislature.
Yeah, by the way, the new states' right is even worse. Well, not the even worse, but like is also just as fucking violent. Like the new states' rights is to slice the throats of desperate child migrants with a concertina wire before they bleed out into the Rio Grande. That's like when Ted Cruz is talking about like come and take it, brother, and they put the concertina wire on that flag. He's saying like no, like we are our new states' rights. Like we will secede because we want to put concertina wire and booby traps on the Rio Grande so that incoming migrants that are like seeking asylum legally will fucking die. We want to booby trap and kill children, have them wash away in the Rio Grande. Insane stuff.
On an even smaller level, some Americans have simply proclaimed their property to be an independent micronation. For example, in 1998, Kevin Baugh declared his 11.3-acre property in the Nevada desert to be the Republic of Molossia. And since 1998, President Baugh has ruled his micronation as a benevolent dictator.
I am President Kevin Baugh of the Republic of Molossia, a tiny self-declared country within...
Dog, this is like libertarianism as an infantile disorder, but like at the maximum level, okay? This is when you become like the most libertarian. Oh, it's so sick.
Nevada. That's within the United States. We have everything that a nation should have: bank, stamps, and the post office.
To date, no country has recognized the legitimacy of this micronation, whose currency is tied to the price of cookie dough. Now, obviously, if you're going to try and secede from the Union, you're going to need a good lawyer. But if you want a great lawyer, my firm...
This is not even a libertarian dude. He's dressed as Pinochet. Excuse me. What do you think Pinochet was? Pinochet is the ultimate libertarian. He is the fucking godfather of neoliberalism in action. Forcible implementation of neoliberalism upon an entire unsuspecting population after a military coup is literally the most. Yeah, he's an authoritarian a capitalist.
The Eagle team can help. If you've suffered a data breach, especially if you've gotten a data breach letter, or were involved in a car crash, or have dealt with sexual harassment, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney who can. It's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can get the best representation and find out all of what your options are. Just click on the link in the description for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle team. Click on the link below. So let's jump right into it. Does the Constitution provide a right to unilaterally secede from the Union? Well, to give everyone's favorite answer, it depends. No, actually, no. States and localities have zero constitutional right to declare themselves independent and break away from the United States. Any votes to secede unilaterally is just political virtue signaling and with zero legal effect. And yet the, quote, constitutional right to secede is a myth that refuses to die, but for really interesting reasons. Now, no state has bought into this mythical right to secede more than the Lone Star State. In fact, Texans love to repeat the legend that Texas, as a condition to joining the US, negotiated an annexation treaty which grants them the unique right to unilaterally secede from the Union and once again become the Republic of Texas. But you might be surprised to learn that the terms of the Texas annexation contain no such provision. But Texas won't be cowed by your big city fact-checking and literacy. As a result, the state's conservative leader—
Damn, dude, he's hammering. What the fuck? This is the most LegalEagle is like straight ripped into a fucking American state, okay?
leaders continue to falsely proclaim a right to secede. In June of 2022, Texas Republicans were once again whistling Dixie by adding to its party platform that Texas retains the right to secede from the United States, declaring a right to nullify the federal laws they don't like under the 10th Amendment, and urging the Texas legislature to pass a referendum to determine whether or not the state of Texas should reassert its status as an independent nation. And in March of 2023, Texas State Representative Brian Slayton introduced a bill to put said referendum on the November 2023 ballot. And just in time for the 2024 election, the Texas Supreme Court declined to take up a case from a conservative group that wanted to add Texas secession to this year's presidential primary ballot. But that raises the question, on what legal grounds do some Texans claim the state has a right to secede? Well, according to Daniel Miller, the president of the pro-secession Texas Nationalist Movement, Texas—
Yeah, you're right. That's true. The Republicans claim to be patriots and they insult America constantly. January 6th and this. Hello. Also, hyping up cessation as terrorists. It's like the most un-American thing you can do. Constantly claiming that you want to secede from the United States of America is the least patriotic thing on the planet, okay? If the American federal government had a fraction of the fucking balls that we believe it has, you would be turning Texas into Xinjiang, okay? Constant round-the-clock surveillance on every separationist Texan, okay? Literally one party loyalist member per family. I'm talking, we are sending Will Stancil into the homes of every suburban fascist, okay? Any kind of small business tyrant is going to get a Democratic Party loyalist to sit in their homes, okay? Are you talking about secession? Guess what, dude? Oh, you want to secede? How about you see the inside of this re-education camp? Boom. Rip its guts out, re-fucking build it as a goddamn amusement park for everyone else to come and enjoy the beautiful culture of Texas. That's what I'm advocating for, okay? Think about that. Re-education camps for all the hogs in Texas that want to secede. No more separationist bullshit, okay?
Texas has an implied right to secede because the Constitution doesn't say it can't.
Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution lists everything states are forbidden from doing. Guess what's not in there? Withdrawing.
In addition, Miller claims that the 10th Amendment, which says that the federal government only has power spelled out in the Constitution or not delegated by the states, means that states can choose to leave. Now, this argument isn't completely insane. There is a canon of construction that allows you to interpret contracts or statutes by what is included. Specifically, it's based on the Latin phrase is justum generis, which means the company it keeps. If you create a list of things and something is not included in that list, then you can assume that it was not meant to be included in that list. That being said, the argument is also similar to the one used in the movie.
This chatter is right, dude. It's the Airbud defense. Nothing in the rule book that says a dog can't play basketball. Oh, he's saying it, literally. Oh, no.
Airbud. Basically, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't secede from the United States or that a dog can't play basketball.
Oh my God.
Anything in there that says a dog can't play.
He's right. Ain't no rule said the dog can't play basketball.
So I wouldn't necessarily hang my hat on that argument. Most likely, Airbud would be able to secede before Texas. Especially because legal scholars and constitutional experts seem to overwhelmingly agree that the US Constitution does not allow for secession. For example, Stanford Levison, who is a law professor at University of Texas, Austin, said that, quote, almost no lawyer would take that argument seriously. I do believe it is viewed as a closed question. And courts that have weighed in on the issues of secession have always shown.
Yeah, because all lawyers are libtards, brother. What do you mean? What's the highest likelihood that you will become a liberal? Education. In order to become a lawyer, I'm pretty sure you need to go to get undergraduate degree at homosexual Marxist university, okay? And then on top of that, you got to go to law school. That's two different schools. Think about it.
Shot them down. In 2010, Alaska's Supreme Court ruled that secession was illegal, and thus an initiative putting the question to a vote could not be placed on the ballot. So any effort to put a matter on the ballot in Texas would likely not be constitutional either. Even the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who followed a strict form of constitutional interpretation dubbed originalism, said that there's no legal basis for secession. And we learned Scalia's views on this matter in a quite unusual way. Back in 2006, legally minded screenwriter Daniel Turkowitz wrote a letter to all 9 Supreme Court justices for advice on a farcical script he was writing in which Maine secedes from the US and joins Canada, leading to a climactic showdown at the Supreme Court. Scalia was the only justice to provide a substantive response to Turkowitz, and the late justice was unequivocal. Quote, to begin with,
the U.S. is a fairly strong federation. Secession is absolutely illegal and will be met with the full force of the American military as we decided by USA versus CSA. 1861, 1865, states cannot conduct for poll. States cannot interfere in interstate commerce. While the EU is a pretty weak one, yes. States cannot secede. We will claw back at any given foreign policy. States cannot secede. We will claw that back with actual force if necessary. Everybody has to see the top of the hour ad break, okay? Unless they're subscribed. There's no way you can balkanize the chat into people who are not subscribed and won't see the top of the hour ad break between those who are subscribed and won't see the top of the hour ad break. Doesn't work that way. God, that was rough. I'm sorry. I'm losing it. So fucking tired. Shut up. I know it sucked. I know it sucked. I'm tired, okay? I haven't been able to adjust to live in La Vida Loca in Los Angeles. Here's the 3-minute ad break. Regardless, tomorrow I'll be better. I promise. Alley Cat Meow, thank you for the 5. Get the subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour.
With the answer.
Adjust the 2-hour difference. It's not the time difference, man. It's not the time difference. It's that I didn't sleep a lot when I was in Texas, and I like went to bed way later than I normally would.
The answer is clear. If there was any constitutional issue resolved by the Civil War, it is that there is no right to secede. Hence, in the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation indivisible. The justice also explained why a secession case would never end up before the Supreme Court. Quote, I find it difficult to envision who the parties to this lawsuit might be. Is the state suing the United States for a declaratory judgment? But the United States cannot be sued without its consent, and it has not consented to this sort of suit. I am sure that poetic license can overcome all that, but you do not need legal advice for that. Good luck with your screenplay. And although the Supreme Court has never heard a direct secession case, it did address the question indirectly in 1869, and once again, it involves Texas. The Supreme Court case of Texas versus White centered on the cash-strapped state selling U.S. Treasury bonds to help finance its war with the Union. A brokerage firm purchased some of these bonds and then resold them to investors. And after the South's defeat, the Union-supported Reconstruction government of Texas filed suit against the brokerage firm directly with the Supreme Court, as the Constitution confers original jurisdiction to the top court for cases in which a state is a party. And Texas argued that the rebel government had illegally sold these bonds, and the state was therefore entitled for their return and/or repayment. The brokerage.
As a son of immigrants, I can't believe you aren't in favor of people coming into our country for better lives. Wait, what? You think I'm not in favor of immigration? What? Just like how non-subs aren't in favor of this top of the hour ad break? Okay, first of all, I already did it. I already ran the ad break. Too late.
The firm argued that these sales were legal and it had no duty to repay Texas. And in a 5-3 ruling, the Supreme Court ruled that the Confederate States sale was illegal because Texas's secession itself was illegal, and as a matter of law, it never happened. Writing for the majority of the court, Chief Justice and secret grizzly bear Salmon Chase, who once famously graced the face of the now defunct $10,000 bill, declared, quote, the union between Texas and the other states was as complete, as perpetual, and as indissoluble as the union between the original states. There was no place for reconsideration or revocation except through revolution or through the consent of the states. So the Supreme Court has spoken. There are only two paths to secession: revolution or a consensual dissolution. Now, before you go thinking that declaring war against the United States is just this one weird trick that allows you to secede, or governments hate it because it's so successful, I should note that waging war against the government is not legal. It's what we lawyer types would call treason, a crime that is punishable by death. Hashtag not legal advice, don't commit treason. Also, seceding by force, even unsuccessfully, or especially unsuccessfully, will typically result in a high body count. And during the Civil War, about 620,000 people, or 2% of the nation's total population, were killed. So unless you're jazzing to murder thousands, if not millions, of your friends and neighbors, spend decades in prison for sedition, or get executed for treason, revolution is probably not the ideal secession path. In fairness, that would be the most Texas thing that you could do. But there is one way to secede without murdering a whole...
Wait. That's right. That's why we need Donald Trump back. That's it. He'll stop the Texas secession dead in his tracks.
Whole bunch of people. The states and the federal government consent to your secession. Now, of course, some states already act like their own independent nations and have the wealth to back that up. If California and Texas were their own countries, they would be the 5th and 10th largest economies in the world by GDP, respectively. And if one state leaves, it's easy to...
Yeah, you hear that, Texans? Know your goddamn place, okay? You're fucking the 10th largest economy. California's the 5th largest economy, okay? Suck it.
Imagine the domino effect of mass exodus of red and or blue states. So what would a consensual breakup between one or more states look like? Well, in a December 2022 article for the New Republic, Bryn Tannehill, a former naval aviator and a senior defense analyst, gamed out what a divided United States of America might actually look like. In the piece, Tannehill, who outlined scenarios for what she referred to as a soft secession and hard secession, which she described as akin to a separation versus a messy divorce, respectively. In Tannehill's view, a soft secession could look like the 56-nation British Commonwealth, where nations like New Zealand, Canada, and Australia technically owe allegiance to the crown, but in practice, they're all their own sovereign nations, and the monarch's role is entirely ceremonial. The US doesn't have to swear allegiance to the crown because we're dope and we do dope things. But she also cited as an example the Kurds in northern Iraq, and that, while technically part of Iraq, the Iraqi government exercises little control, and the Kurds have their own armed forces that cooperate in anti-terror operations against ISIS. Though that hasn't exactly worked out especially well for the Kurds historically. But the idea of a soft secession has its supporters on the conservative, albeit never Trump side of the aisle, like former National Review columnist David French. French argued that different states and different regions should be empowered to go about American life in a radically different way without federal intervention. So in practice, this would look like a beefed up version of federalism, which French describes as tolerance through self-governance and community autonomy. In the system, more power would be delegated to the states, while the federal government takes a hands-off approach to let the laboratories of democracy chart their own paths. So in theory, this type of soft secession would have the benefit of preserving the Union and America's global power in a troubled world, while leaving open the possibility of reconciliation. But that would also require Americans tolerating policies without a federal floor of rights and or protections that many would find detestable and unacceptable, including dissenting citizens within said states. But Tannehill argues that a hard secession is a more dangerous proposition. Quote, this would involve a clean break. No more ostensible allegiance to a government in Washington, simply regions breaking off and forming their own countries based on common culture, religion, ethnicity, and regional identity.
I am not in favor of any kind of balkanization, okay? I believe in a strong, centralized government that will command the economy to American prosperity, okay? After our 100 years of humiliation in the United States of America, it is now time. Do you understand me? It is now time that we will rise up from the ashes of this fascist American KKK dystopia and create We will create the next American prosperity generation, okay? It's going to happen. The people yearn for balkanization? No.
According to Tannehill, a hard secession could take many forms. It could be like the outcome of the fall of the...
Well said, Chairman Hasan. No. General Secretary of the People's Republic of United States, the People's Republic of America, Taylor Kelsey Swift.
Soviet Union in 1991, which triggered an economic collapse and a huge decrease in life expectancy, not to mention the matter of nuclear
United Socialist States of America.
Materials being scattered across successor states. Tannehill also cites to the fall of Yugoslavia in the 90s, which resulted in a decade of civil war and genocide. Or it could be like Taiwan and China, a decades-long cold armed standoff. But apart from the legality or illegality of the whole situation, a national divorce, even a consensual one, would be an absolute bureaucratic nightmare with a ton of unanswered questions. Like, how would the national debt be divided? What happens to all the money paid into federal programs like Social Security and Medicare for those leaving the US? What do we do with federal assets like the gold fort at Fort Knox or the US military bases? And for that matter, what happens to the US military itself? And the nukes? Dibs on the nukes. Yeah, I'm sure this will work out just fine. In short, yes, theoretically, you could break up the United States through mutual consent, but only at great personal, economic, and political costs. There are just so many complicated issues to resolve, even with a mutual separation, not to mention that America's standing in the world would immediately and permanently be diminished. And even if the initial separation were peaceful, which I kind of doubt, there would be years of disputes from trade and redrawing borders. And as history has shown regarding boundary disputes, there's no guarantee that we wouldn't break out into an all-out, bloody second civil war. So I know we've all been fussing and feuding, but let's just take a breath and remember, as Americans, we have more in common.
It's so funny to think that like Texas wouldn't be immediately and permanently annexed and reoccupied in like any kind of cessation. Like Texas can act like they would be able to withstand the entire might of the US military, but there is 0% chance. Like it would just be ridiculous. It would be so ridiculous. Either by US or Mexico? No, I don't think like, I mean, even Mexico could maybe try and take a piece. But ultimately, the American federal government would take it back by force. And then all the Texans would technically lose all of their rights and liberties under the permanent annexation of the United Socialist States of America. Yeah, people are like, oh, Mexico would take over. Yeah, bro, there would Texas would also Texas would become cartel land, okay? All of the gravy seals that fantasize about like home invasions would finally be able to experience that, you know? What is this? Oh, NRA.
Common than what divides us, and find a way to work through our issues together, at least until the kids go to college. And it looks like a frightening number of states are going along with the plan to give the middle finger to the federal government. That didn't work out so well last time. So, Marjorie, stop trying to make secession happen. It's not going to happen. Instead, let's just all take a breath and remember, as Americans, we have more in common than divides us, and find a way to work through our issues together, at least until the kids go to college. And if you're looking—
Shit, I just realized, dude, Alves is in Texas. No! Winnie the Moo. Winnie the Moo. I'd have to save her. I'd have to save her personally. No, Texas is not allowed. Texas is no longer allowed to secede.